Most of you know about the show Shark Tank. Coming up next, we have a guy who was on the show and not eaten by the sharks. In fact, he came back with a cha-ching cash. Stay with us.
Programming is supported by NIPSCO. Today's young minds are constantly reimagining what our world will be like tomorrow. That's why NIPSCO is upgrading its infrastructure now, so we're ready for whatever comes next. More information at nipsco.com/future.
Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. Starting a business is not an easy task. Keeping it up and running is even more difficult. Expanding it or managing its growth is the ultimate challenge. We have with us today a guy who has done these things, and we are going to hear his story. Let me introduce you to Drew Mitchell, who is one of the founders of Rent Like a Champion and has the distinction of having been on the hit show Shark Tank and not only survived, but came back with a little cash. Glad to have you on the show.
Keith, I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm trying to not be distracted by them socks.
Oh, do you,
on there. Those
you like
socks
these socks? You know, the best part is they came in an ensemble and it's got a matching undergarment.
Oh, well.
But I'm not going to tell you whether or not I'm wearing that today.
Well, that's good, and nor show it. That's a good thing. So you've started this business. How long ago was this that you started this Rent Like a Champion business?
So the story really goes back about 10 years. I had been working in finance functions at IBM and then later Orbitz, and really wanted to get into more of an entrepreneurial type of environment and decided to go back to business school. I returned to my alma mater at Notre Dame. And
you people at Notre Dame always drop it, don't you?
I waited until the fourth sentence, didn't I?
You did.
So I went back to Notre Dame, and I really had a lot of trouble finding a place to live, finding an apartment, and I'm looking for a place for school starts in August, and it's June. And so everything's kind of sold out, all the apartments are taken up, and I found a little house a couple of blocks from campus for about 30 grand. And I bought it and I moved in. And at that point, didn't realize it, but I was in the process of starting a business.
I'm trying to imagine what a little house near the Notre Dame campus looks like that costs $30,000.
Well, I'll describe it to you. It's a turn of the century, 2-bedroom bungalow. You know, it's probably 1,800 square feet with a detached garage on about 1/10 of an acre.
So that's not bad. You know, for $30,000?
It felt like arbitrage because the rents were just exorbitantly high in South Bend. I mean, to go and get an apartment, $600, $700, $800 a month, and the mortgage on a $30,000 house is $116 a month or something.
So you've had this business since for a long time.
Well, or sometimes as you know, you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you accidentally stumble upon an opportunity. And so I had acquired this house, and the house next to me went up for sale. And I called up a good pal of mine named Derek Shank, who was also a Notre Dame guy, and invited him down, and we started looking at the local market. And between June and the time I had showed up for my first class, we'd bought 4 homes. And the idea was that there was a boatload of other folks out there who were like me looking for a place to live.
And where'd you come up with the money for that? I mean,
Sure. So this is 2006.
Okay.
This is pre-crash. Money lending was a lot easier. And so you could go and get a loan for an investment property up to 90% of the purchase price.
And you'd been out of college for a few years.
Yeah, and
so
I'd been out a little bit of credit back.
Some money.
Yeah, so so I had a little bit of money saved up. But if you think about what 10% down is on a $30,000 house, it's $3,000. I mean, that's a palatable chunk of money that you can probably find. And so, I think the total capital outlay for the first 4 properties was sub $20,000. And they were mostly turnkey properties, meaning that they were essentially ready to rent right out of the gate. I could put somebody in the home almost immediately. I didn't need a new roof.
Okay.
I didn't need it was a functional property.
So then this transition to something completely different than just renting to people,
Well,
right?
yeah. So this is where it gets kind of interesting and maybe painful. So classes start. Here I am, I'm at school. You know, I should be focused on my MBA, and I'm focused on 4 vacant properties, or 3 really, because I was renting one of the properties from the business, Rent Like a Champion. So I've got 3 vacancies. It turns out kids really are leasing about a year in advance. And vacancy kills in real estate. It really does. You've got expenses going out and no revenue coming in. It's a bad recipe. So we really put our heads together and we started thinking, what's a way that we could at least generate some revenue until we catch the student rental cycle, where they're looking for a place in October,
right.
You know, November, December, January, and they're signing a lease for that following year. And so what happened was we put one of the properties on eBay and on Craigslist for a major Notre Dame football weekend. Notre Dame's interesting because you've got a stadium that at the time I think held 90,000 people, and you have 140,000 people that come into town for these games. So there's an insufficient number of tickets in the stadium. There's also an insufficient hotel infrastructure to accommodate all of those folks coming in.
Yeah, I've been over there. Sometimes it's like there's almost more people outside and in the bars and than even
inside of the game,
yeah,
right?
So you're like, wow, all these people come to town. It's amazing.
You're absolutely right. You nailed it. And so when you start looking at that, you're able to identify potentially that there's an opportunity for one of these, you know, game day travelers who are looking for a place to live or a place to stay for the weekend, maybe don't want to have to haul all the way back to Chicago, you know, or stay in a Hilton out in Elkhart. And so these properties, one of the unique things or the helpful things is that they were all within a mile of campus, and that became a strategy as we started to build that real estate portfolio. If it was greater than a mile from campus, we didn't even look at it.
So were you still renting them to students too, or were you just using them only for the games?
That's a great question. So the ultimate goal, the best economics for an individual property was to have it leased by students for an academic year. And what the weekend football rentals ended up becoming for us was really a platform that allowed us to get through that first year, where you can't really hit that cycle right. If you have a home and you're trying to put students in it, you should anticipate about a year of vacancy because of that lease up period, how far in advance it happens. I mean, remember when you're in school, you and your buddies, it is so important where you live and you want to live together, and there's a finite amount of inventory out there. So you're really going out early and trying to lock up your lease. So we put this property on eBay, and it was unbelievable, Keith. I mean, it gets bid up. You know, I think we went from, you know, $100 to like $1,200 in a couple of days while the auction was live, and it told us that there was a market for these short-term rentals in and around South Bend.
So then this transition eventually into, you guys started then not acquiring, but utilizing other properties that people owned?
Well, you're right.
Okay.
So that sort of strategy became a way for us to go and acquire new properties and kind of take care of that 1 year. What then started happening that was kind of neat is people heard about us, and there were folks that were out renting their own property for football weekends who had already kind of become aware of this trend. And this is sort of pre-Airbnb. We started about the same time as Airbnb, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the vacation rental space. And so folks started reaching out to us and said, hey, can you give me a hand with helping me rent out my home for football weekends? It's kind of a pain in the neck for me to keep going out and marketing it. And so we started to really invest time and money into building an online platform that allowed homeowners to interact with us, register their property, post pictures, and build a profile for it. And then we were you
were the rental agent,
and we were essentially operating as the guys who helped connect the renter with the homeowner.
So ultimately, how many homes did you kind of end up with roughly in South Bend?
So we didn't fully appreciate the potential value in the vacation rental business model right away. I mean, it really wasn't until about 2011, 12, when we brought on an intern named Mike Doyle. And actually, Mike worked for us as a sophomore and junior at Notre Dame, helping to manage our own portfolio of homes. And so he was leading the team of students that were going and showing the property, and then ultimately we would sign the lease. But Mike prepared a business plan that said, hey, what we're doing here in South Bend for these vacation rentals, first of all, I think we could grow it. And I think it could be 5 or 10 or 15 times larger than it is today. But the second thing is that I think that this model could make sense in other places. And he gave some examples of places where essentially they had maniacal football fans who were traveling en masse to the college campus.
The same kind of people like Notre Dame people,
like
right?
the Notre Dame people, Keith, exactly.
People,
Crazy
okay.
nut jobs. And, but they just wanted to be there for the game. And they also really are attracted to being in that environment. It's a fun environment. I mean,
Right.
you mentioned to me earlier that you had been to a Notre Dame game. You see that. I mean, just people are thrilled. They don't want to get in their car after the
Right.
game and load the kids up and drive out.
So after Mike kind of brought this up, I mean, what was your first venture into another market?
So Mike came to us with a pretty well-prepared business plan. And he said, guys, I'm looking for $25,000 to expand this business. And I believe that State College, Pennsylvania, is a very fertile market, and it matches many of the same characteristics as we're seeing here at Notre Dame. So he took that summer and he took the investment that we had provided to him, and he built out a new website. We had Rent Like a Champion for Notre Dame, and this one was Penn State Football Rentals. And so in that one summer, he was able to get something like 20 or 25 homes signed up, and he was able to recoup 100% of the investment that we had made into that market. And once you sort of build the home inventory, it stays on the shelf. It's
Right.
it's a recycled
got
inventory
'em,
that's
yep.
then available potentially for the next game, so long as your homeowner stays happy. So it's been just a terrific market for us.
So fast forward, about the time that you thought maybe we're going to go on to Shark Tank or try to look for some more investment capital, about how many communities had you moved into at that point?
We were in about 10 communities
Okay.
in various stages. So
Then what made you think, at that point, you're like looking for more capital?
well, it's a couple things. One, there were other competitors in our space, some who lacked our sort of event focus and were more generally focused on destinations, beach and ski vacations in major metropolitan areas, and that'd be like an Airbnb. There wasn't as much focus on these smaller towns that attracted or held very big events. So we were making major inroads in that space, particularly in college football, but we started to see competition. And so that, for us, kind of put some pressure on us to really go out and try to grab that land and grab that market before other companies and competitors did. So we started looking at different ways that we might be able to quickly and dramatically expand our reach, the number of markets that we're operating in, as well as
So
potential.
you were ahead of the curve and you wanted to stay ahead of the curve.
We wanted to stay ahead of the curve. That's
Okay.
exactly right. And so my partner and the CEO of Rent Like a Champion, Mike Doyle, sent an email to Shark Tank. And this was in November of 13.
Were you inspired by watching Jaws or something? Did you capture that? Or did you hear that sound in the bathroom one night? Yeah.
We might need to be careful. We might need to write somebody a check if
Yeah.
you and I go into chorus.
So don't sing
here.
anymore.
All right, I'm done.
For a
I'm
couple
done.
reasons.
Okay. But with that little sidetrack, I lost the question.
So we're going now to, so you're saying, look, we ought to approach Shark Tank,
Yeah.
and maybe there'll be an opportunity for us there.
Yeah.
And you guys wrote them, I believe.
Yeah, so
right?
that's right. Thank you for
Applied.
catching. So we wrote an email, and we didn't go through any form submission or anything like that. We just said, look, we think we've got a great story. It's typically a CPG, a consumer packaged good. It's very rarely do you see a service, particularly an internet-based service that doesn't have a good or something that you can touch. So I don't think we put a lot of stock in it. It was one of many things that we were doing as we're entrepreneurs, You're firing in a lot of different directions, and hopefully you hit on a couple of them.
I call that kissing a lot of toads.
So we were
sometimes, yeah.
kissing toads everywhere,
Yeah.
and we were knee deep in the swamp. So, this was about November, and in March we hear back from them, and they said, we got your email, we love your story. We need you to submit a 10-minute video, and this was on a Monday, we need it by Friday. And
And this is March when?
so this is March of 13.
13, okay.
I think, if I've got, or maybe it's March of 14. Sorry, March of 14. So, we knew we needed to kick butt on this video. I mean, we wanted it to grab their attention. We had no idea how many other folks they were reaching out to saying, hey, send in a video. So we went out, got a production crew, and brought, a terrific group of people who kind of know how to edit video and take video and put this kind of clip together. And we did a great piece. And we filmed it at 1871, which is the tech incubator in the Merchandise Mart in Chicago, where we had taken space. And that's also, by the way, has been meaningful for us as we've tried to surround ourselves with other entrepreneurs and learn from other people's mistakes, potentially to avoid making them yourself. Be terrific to talk about that maybe on another day or if time permits. But
so what was it like when they then contacted you and said, we'd like you to come on the show?
I mean, thrilling. We couldn't be more excited. It's like, wow, this could really happen. And so we were very proud of the video that we had submitted. We knew that they were filming in June, and this is March, so there really wasn't a lot of time. So after,
how many principals are in the business at this point? Had Mike become a partner?
Yeah, so Mike, when he graduated from Notre Dame, he had a really nice job offer from Target up in Minneapolis, in a traditional corporate, type of company. And we made him an offer that pretty closely matched the terms of his Target offer, but also made him a partner. And he's an equal partner to the rest of us.
So
now there's 4 of us.
Okay,
Derek
4 of you.
Schenk, Jordan Kearns, Mike Doyle, and myself.
They'll all appreciate that little credit there.
They might.
So you and Mike went on the show, right?
Yeah, so you kind of had to figure
flip a
out.
coin or what?
It's a little bit of that. I mean, Derek.
Although you definitely have the presence, I can see this.
Thank you. I
So-
appreciate that. They thought maybe people would feel bad for, the bald guy, and I don't really know. We kind of all got in a room.
You can wear the socks.
And I wear the socks with the matching undergarments and all of that. So there were certain things, but we all have different personalities. I tend to be a little bit more extroverted. Jordan is a brilliant marketer, and he's one of the brains behind the operation. And Derek is also an entrepreneur. He's started the largest and fastest growing cell phone chain in the Chicago area for Verizon. It's called Mobile Generation. He's got 30 stores now. So he was really pretty laser focused on growing that business, is invested in it, and passionate and excited about what we were doing at Run Like a Champion, but really focused on other things.
So again, let's jump to going on to Shark Tank. So you're sitting, waiting to go on to the show. And so what was happening and what was going through your mind when you were sitting there waiting, it's like your turn to go
I got to
in front of
catch
the
you up real
Sharks?
quick because there's a couple things that happen that are sort of interesting. I mean, you got to go. They need to make sure you're legitimate, and so you do go through this period. You kiss the toad, but they want to make sure that you're qualified. So that's pretty heavy. And then they say, we're going to let you know that you're flying out to Sony Studios in LA. And we can't tell you the exact date or when, so keep your calendar open for a month, right? And so that's kind of hard to do, especially for busy professionals. So you get this call and it's like, hey, it's Thursday, you're flying out on Monday. We'll be filming on dry run Tuesday, filming Wednesday. So it all happens very, very quickly. You don't really have a chance to sort of absorb everything that's going on, but it's really exciting. And you're trying to make sure you got your pitch down and you want to be able to convey the right story. So there's all of that. We spent a lot of time actually doing sort of practice Shark Tank runs. We went out and found some business professionals who were kind of tough guys, and we went and pitched them and had them ask us questions as if we were in the tank. It allowed us to kind of identify a couple of landmines that we might hit when you go into the tank. But so now here you are, it's day up. There's all these different companies, and they're all trying to get ready for their pitch, and they don't really want anybody else to know what they're doing because there is a sense that there's a finite amount of capital with the Sharks. They're trying to do a finite number of deals. Maybe that's not entirely true, but they don't do a deal with everybody.
But that's what you believe and that's what you see,
yeah,
that they turn a lot of people down.
You want to do a better
after
job.
After they eat them
After they eat them
on TV.
and spit them out. And I saw a couple guys that really got kind of crucified in there, and you could see it on their face when they walk past your room and you're still waiting, and it sort of, in some respects, feels like you're kind of waiting for the firing squad. And actually, kind of a funny story, I was doing this listening to music and trying to get kind of in the right place, and I came across this YouTube video. It was a hypnosis video for attracting money and being a magnet for money. And I thought, well, this makes sense. I'm trying to attract money right now. And Mike Doyle, my partner, leaves to go to the bathroom, and he knew I was listening to this, and he comes back, and I could use all your 20s there, but I had stuck them on my head in various locations, and here I am reclined on the couch. And he walks back in, and I got all this money stuck to me. and it pretended as if I didn't know how it had gotten there. So, you know what?
Maybe he thought you had already gone on, got the money.
It totally lightened the mood, though. And it really allowed us to kind of be ourselves and go in there. Not just that, but, you know, we did try to have fun with it.
So we're actually getting to the end of this thing. So we've got to say you went on and you got some money.
Yeah. So we went on, we gave our pitch. What you don't see if you watch the episode is that in the first 30 seconds after we gave our sort of elevator pitch, we had 2 sharks drop out. And that's not proper. I don't think that's totally conveyed if you watch the episode. So it was like the air had been sucked out of the room, and here we are. Now we're fighting, and we're trying to crawl our way back into this and make sure we don't leave here embarrassed without a deal. You know, we had an objective to go in there and put a deal together with Mark Cuban. He's got a sports background. We thought he was the perfect partner for us. What we didn't know is Chris Sacca was going to be there. This guy is a sensational entrepreneur. Former Google executive. He's an attorney. And then he was a early investor in Twitter. Before Twitter went public, he'd scooped up a bunch of shares. They go public, dust settles, the guy's worth $1 billion. And he invests in Uber before anybody had ever heard of Uber. That's disrupting the way that people get taxi cabs. He invested in Instagram, which it's been disruptive in the social media space. So we are just thrilled about the potential to do a deal with these sharks. One thing that we did is we took our valuation. We thought we were worth $4 million, and we cut it in half. And we did that because we went into the sharks. We said every dollar you put into our deal today is worth $2, and here's why. We value your investment so much and what could happen from a partnership with you guys that we want to give you 50% off today. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that on the show, and that actually didn't make the air either. But
well, you ended with only giving away 10% of your company, and you got $200,000?
That's exactly right.
That was almost unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, I see usually people on there practically give the whole company away to get anything. And
the smaller percentage of the business is probably reflective of the fact that we had some track record, and we were putting some big numbers up on the board at the time. Kevin O'Leary offered us $200,000 for 15% of our business. That broke the ice. Okay, so now we've got a deal on the table. We know that we can leave with a deal. And incidentally, I saw him last week at Notre Dame. He was giving a pitch. He said, "You ever regret not, offering us what we were originally asking for?" But Chris Sacca stepped up and said, "I want to do this deal, but Mark, I want you to get into the deal with me." So now those are our 2 partners, Mark Cuban, Chris Sacca. They're phenomenal guys, and what they've been able to do to help us run our business is really amazing. I mean, Mark's sort of taken off all the stuff that you do, and you're an entrepreneur. I mean, it's no fun doing accounting. It's no fun dealing with payroll. He's taken all of that off of our plates.
I think we're going to have to do part 2 of this because I want to know the rest of the story, what happened afterwards, and we're really out of time.
Okay.
So I think we're going to need to say to our, if I can get you back, we'll do part 2 of this.
Are you kidding? I'd love to come back.
Okay, well, we'll do that.
Before you let me go, Keith is a hero of mine. I was in LNI 29, and it is so fun to be able to sit here across from you and trade stories. I would love to come back.
Okay, well then we'll do that. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it, Drew.
Thank you so much.
Today's show was about entrepreneurship. Most of you know that I like to define words as part of my closing thoughts. It's important to find meaning in words and think about their value. Let's look at the word entrepreneur. If we break it into pieces, we begin with entre, which is the French word for enter. The pre is a shortened version of enterprise. The final part is nur, translated from Bohemian as nuts. Let's put those together and translate. Enter an enterprise and you're nuts. Add the standard ending to make it entrepreneurship, and we have someone who enters an enterprise and goes crazy on the journey. Okay, I admit it, I took great liberties and created some false translations to make a point. Let's ask another question. Why does the word entrepreneur begin with the letter E? I think it is because there are so many other E words which are affiliated with entrepreneurs. Expectation. I expect to be a success. In fact, a big success. Excellence. I'm going to do it better than others. I will be the best. I will be so successful that I will export, another E word. Exceptional. I will be the exception to the rule of failure. extra. I am willing to put in the extra, even incredible effort to make it work. Embryo. I will start at the very beginning, nurture it, and watch it grow. And finally, energy. I am fired up and have so much energy to put into my endeavor. How about those E words? There are perhaps a couple of other words like egomaniac or eccentric, but that's another set of thoughts. This all sounds as if I'm making fun of entrepreneurs. I'm not. It would be foolish for me to truly attack these people since I'm one. My track record in business includes 11 startups, 10 of which I owned, and the formation of 12 nonprofit organizations. Some of them were quite successful and some not so good. That is what normally happens. I have a tremendous respect for entrepreneurs and personally know of the sacrifice, effort, and commitment it takes to start an enterprise. It is not for the timid or frail. This country was built by men and women who founded businesses and started organizations to help others. I applaud their contributions and encourage others to be one too if all those E words fit for you. Thanks for watching our show. It would also be nice to find out what you thought about today's show. You can reach us through our email address, focus@lakeshorepublicmedia.org, or our website. Both are currently listed on the screen. Tell people that you watch Lakeshore Public Television and how it impacts your life. Be sure and join us again next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.
Programming is supported by NIPSCO. Today's young minds are constantly reimagining what our world will be like tomorrow. That's why NIPSCO is upgrading its infrastructure now, so we're ready for whatever comes next. More information at nipsco.com/future.